Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ringside Cinema. I am Money Mike, and today I'm going to be looking at who should dethrone Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. And, obviously right now, there's a big story and plot in play. Jon Moxley keeps saying how this ain't your AEW anymore, and he's essentially taking it over with the Death Riders. And so, with the essentially killing off of Bryan Danielson back at Wrestle Dream, it does kind of make you wonder who is going to be that guy to dethrone him and when. Now, based off the current storylines, I would say probably it has to be an AEW original. Because the way that they are coming off with this whole storyline is that this is essentially a takeover. This is like, you're fighting for AEW, right? You're fighting for the company, fighting for the brand. It's all this stuff that accumulates into, like, they're the bad guys. Death Riders are the bad guys, are taking over. And to me, that tells me it has to be an AEW original. And that's kind of where things get complicated, because the AEW World Title Fatal 4-Way match, which I will be live streaming AEW World's End right here on YouTube next Saturday night. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and we will find out if Jon Moxley will still be the world champion after the Fatal 4-Way match, in which he is defending against Jay White, Hangman Adam Page, and I have it on my phone, and Orange Cassidy. Now, Jay White, I guess you could say, is a AEW original, but he did come from Japan. Orange Cassidy does fit that bill of being a AEW original. Then you got Hangman Adam Page, who has evolved so much since he was the AEW World Champion, since he beat Kenny Omega a couple years ago. And, I do like this new evolution of Hangman Adam Page. I do think that at some point Hangman should win the world title with this new character, but I don't see it happening next week. And I think we've already seen the Hangman Adam Page kind of world title storyline. And then you got Orange Cassidy, who does fit the bill of an AEW original. And you go, probably not. But then you go to someone like a Darby Allin. Now, I did talk about this before when I said, hey, AEW needs to find their John Cena. They need to start building more homegrown talent rather than relying on WWE and New Japan free agents. That Darby Allin is potentially going to be the guy to beat Jon Moxley, potentially at AEW All In Texas next year. But you also have things that are a little bit complicated because of Christian Cage, who does have a contract to cash in for a world title match at any time. Now, a fatal 4-way match where Christian Cage could easily steal the win, the title, without Moxley getting pinned, where he comes in and cashes it in right away, or in the middle of the match, making it a fatal 5-way, thus sneaking off with the world title. I think that would be kind of a unique idea, because that way at least Cage does cash in his opportunity and we get that out of the way, but also Christian Cage can have a short run with the title before Jon Moxley does win the title back. And, I always look at it the same way as like Seth Rollins, where I talked about the long title reigns, where, I talked about Cody Rhodes. I said, the caveat is always kind of like, well, you can always give them the title back. I feel like that's what you could do here with Christian Cage, is where Moxley feels like he's about to win, or, there's some situation where all four men are down. Christian Cage comes in, cashes in, steals the championship, wins, and that's how World's End will end. But again, is that really how you want Jon Moxley's kind of run to end, when it does seem like it is getting started and there does seem to be a long-term plan in place? So I don't know if I don't know how the contract situation works. I'm assuming it's a 1-year thing where he can cash in at any point over the next year. So he would have until August of 2025, unless it's All In to All In, which then All In is in July. So now that's a month less than he actually has. But again, that does complicate things in terms of who should win, who should dethrone Moxley. Because again, I think the timing for Christian Cage has been just thrown off, because he's done the best work of his career, his best work since his TNA run. And it feels like, to me, the times that he should win the world title are kind of already taken up. You had Swerve, you had MJF, so it's and now you have Bryan Danielson winning it All In, and you have Moxley taking the title from him. So Christian Cage right now, even though he's doing the best work of his career, is kind of just left out there right now, right? Because there's no room right now for him. And even though I don't think Moxley will lose next week, I do think, based on the storyline, I think an AEW original could and probably should win and dethrone him in the name of AEW. And I also look at one more person I want to talk about here, because I'm doing this before the Ravens play the Steelers, so I want to get this video out before that. So let's look at Eddie Kingston. Obviously, we know the history with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. I do think, to me, fans, he's a fan favorite. Fans want to see Eddie Kingston win the world title, and I think even though Darby Allin would be a nice story, you could involve Sting holding back the Death Riders. I do think, to me, once you eliminate the Fatal 4-Way, Christian Cage's contract, I think at some point next year, whether it's All In, All Out, whatever, I think Eddie Kingston, given the history with Jon Moxley and AEW, you go back to the exploding barbed wire death match where Eddie Kingston tried to save Moxley from the explosion. You go back to this past year, Revolution, Eddie Kingston, he beat Bryan Danielson. So, to me, I feel like Eddie Kingston is prime. If he's coming back, he's healthy from his injury, I think he's the perfect guy to do it. I think the fans would like it. The fans would, they would love it, because Eddie Kingston is a fan favorite, like I said, and he is well deserving of that. And, Eddie Kingston, when he was in that feud with CM Punk, he kind of, you're not being right about a lot of things what he said about CM Punk, but, Eddie's kind of always kind of fought for AEW. And I think with Moxley doing this takeover of AEW, I think it makes the perfect sense for Eddie Kingston to be the guy at the end of all this, however long this plays out, to be the guy to dethrone Jon Moxley. And I think this is how Eddie Kingston should win his first world title. He can be looked at as the savior. And again, I know people will say Darby Allin, but I think Eddie Kingston is more believable. That's just my opinion. Comment below. Do you think Jon Moxley will lose next Saturday in the Fatal 4-Way? Do you think Darby Allin should be the one to dethrone him? Should Christian Cage be the one Or do you agree with me that Eddie Kingston is the guy? Comment below. I'm your host, Money Mike, and you've been watching Ringside Cinema.
Ringside Cinema, where the battles roar. Ringside Cinema, legends at the core. Tune in, feel the rush. Wrestling meets the screen. Ringside Cinema, living out the dream. Living out the dream. Living out the dream. Lights down, time to go. Cheers for heroes we know. Ringside forever bold. Wrestling never